Welcome, everyone, to the Pick Six podcast, where we discuss the biggest stories in college football. I'm your host, Chris Chang, and joining me, as always, is my favorite. Nah, I don't even know what to give you. It's Turkey Day. It's a day after Turkey Day. We're both hungover from the food, but who cares? Rudy's joining us again. My boy, Rudy Tamarchio. Rudy, it's kind of a bittersweet day. We have made it to the end of the regular season. This flew by a little faster than I thought. Our Canes are heading up north to take on the Orange Men, the Orange
Used to
Fighters.
be orange, but now they're just straight orange.
Yeah, what is an orange exactly? Who
Uh,
is Syracuse? What are they?
so I think it was a Native American reference when they were orange men before, and then just to kind of remove that sense to be more sensitive, they just changed it to orange.
Okay, politically correct. I like it. Okay, sure. But well, anyways, let's get into it. The series leans to Miami heavily, 16-7. We've won 16 games. They've won 7. Current win streak belongs to Miami by 6 games from 1999 to 2017, which is the last time they played them. But you could technically make that from 1999 to now because 2017 was the last time we played them. Um, we beat them 27-19 here in Miami. Syracuse is currently 8-3, 4-3 in conference play, 5-1 at home, which is very important, and has won their last 3 games. This is a must-win game to get to Charlotte. Rudy, what do you think are the keys to success for Miami?
I don't think this is much of a surprise. I do like the way Miami kind of lines up against Syracuse, but they need to come out hot offensively and they come out hot defensively, and they have to use it those improvements they made last week. They need to shut down that passing game of Syracuse pretty quickly because Kyle McCord likes to get the ball out quickly. I believe he has either I can't remember what the end of last week looked like, but at one point he was outpacing Cam Ward in passing yards.
Yeah, he is.
So they throw a lot. They
Yeah,
throw a
they
lot.
do. They do. Kyle McCord has the ninth fastest release in the nation, which will not bode well for our pass rush or our secondary. That's kind of a like double-headed sword or double-bladed sword for Syracuse because again, while we did get pressure last week, in the last couple games, our D line has not gotten the pressure they were getting at the beginning of the season. So it'll be interesting to see if we can get back there because with that said, there is a caveat in there. Syracuse's O line is atrocious. They're really not that good, which is why
Yep.
McCord has to get the ball out so quickly. So it'll be a very interesting matchup to see if our ends, again, once again, we're talking about Barron and Bain, if they can get to that backfield, hold them in, and then force some pressure with Kyle McCord because that is the one thing Kyle McCord does not do well under. I mean, that's obviously like a duh statement. Most quarterbacks do not do well under pressure. But Kyle McCord, especially, we saw him against pick throw 5 picks, I think it was uh, 3 or 2 back-to-back pick sixes, which were wild. So it'll be interesting to see. Syracuse is a very pass-heavy team. They actually lean to the pass 63% of the time. But the funny thing is they actually do not pass downfield. They're not like us. They don't like to air raid it. They're like these little quick slants and shallow passes, which is kind of our weakness. How do you think they play against our secondary?
I'm really interested. I don't want to say too much about how it really depends on who's officiating this game because
Ooh.
I'm really interested to see like how it plays out. Because if Miami secondary can play the way that Syracuse's secondary likes to play, which is very physical and jam at the line of scrimmage, it should help. The one mismatch that I'm a little concerned about, though, is going to be Aronde Gadsden. That's a name that anybody in South Florida should know really well because that is a former Miami Dolphins tight end, played at the University of Georgia. His kid plays at Syracuse. He happens to
Yeah.
be what, like 6'6" or 6'8" or something like that. He's a big dude.
He's our
And
tight
that
end,
is
right?
one. Go ahead.
Is that the tight end you're talking about?
Yeah. So
Yeah,
that's
he's a
that's
big
one
guy.
mismatch that I'm not happy about. And I think, look, if it's a quick hit offense, if they're going to run a lot of quick throws, slants, hitches, I feel like Miami should be prepared for that. And I think the way that they've changed their defensive personnel, they're running 3 safeties now in the secondary with
Yeah, I
Mish
saw
Powell
that.
coming down and playing nickel, having Zaquan Patterson and Jaden Harris back there. You should have Damari Brown back. This is the last regular season game of the year. You'll have Elijah Alston, the defensive tackle, back. This is the healthiest Miami's defense has looked since week one. So if they can put in another performance like they did week one or like they did against Wake Forest, with the exception of that opening defensive drive, it should feel a little better for Miami.
Yeah, I'm watching out for Kyle McCord again because they're built for these quick slants and shallow passes. of between 5 to 7 yards. That's like their Goldilocks little bed area for passing. I wouldn't be surprised if they hit us with the dink and dunk, the quick screens, the running back running out to the flat, and turning a quick 6 yard pass into a 20 to 30 yard play. Just because tackling in open field has kind of been a challenge for us. I mean, again, at the beginning of the season, which was great against Florida, yes, they would get these passes off and they would get completions, but they were immediately tackled. The yak was very low. We have now seen through the course of the entire season that does not exactly play to our strong suits. I think we did a little bit better last week, but I think it's going to be key for the defense to get the pressure. And then, I mean, if they can drop into zone, and we can, and I'm trying to think. I think zone will work better for us than man coverage, just because, like you were saying, we're going to have the three high safeties that'll allow maybe one of them to play a nickel if we need to call an audible on the defensive side of it. And so I feel better in that aspect. My worry, though, is like I said, is if they continue with these dink and dunk passes, and we're forcing like Kiko to like follow this tight end. I don't know. I mean, do you think Kiko can keep up with their tight end?
I don't think he's going to be the one that's going to be much in pass coverage. I feel like you're going to use Kiko as kind of like a fifth defensive lineman because we've done a little bit better at bringing pressure. And if it's one thing that you can do against Syracuse, it's bring pressure. I mean, look, UConn was getting to Kyle McCord. So if you can beat those defensive, if you can use your defensive ends and beat their tackles, that's where I feel like the game is going to be won. And I feel like this is where Tyler Barron and Ruben Bain really need to show their speed because I'm watching the film of how they played against UConn. I'm thinking our guys have at least two steps on this defensive line. They should be getting there. They should be forcing some bad throws. So it's not so much getting sacks and forcing tackles more so than just forcing bad decision making or rushing a throw.
Yeah, I think on our side, looking at our offense, it's a great matchup for our wide receivers. I feel
Yep.
really confident, especially in the slot with Xavier Strepo. I think he should have a breakout day tomorrow. I think he should really. I would like to see 150 yards because I think his season high so far was like 163, and I think he can do that against the Syracuse defense. And the only reason why I think that is because Syracuse's defense only has two players with three or more sacks this season. So
Yep.
their D line should not be a threat. Again, I say this, but then I know as I say this, I'm gonna want to reel it back in. But it's like our O line, I think, can hold that wall and keep Cam Ward's jersey very clean. And then and again, we know when Cam is given time, he makes magic happen, right? It's when the pocket breaks down, when they're covering our receivers too tight, which again, this secondary is not good. They're kind of like our secondary. So it's like I feel good about that. I think statistically, while we have the advantage in almost every area, and again, said that about the Georgia Tech game we lost, said the same thing about the Wake Forest game we won. This is where I was looking, and I was kind of hit with a little area of concern, which is the margins against common opponents. So Syracuse has been better against everyone that we have common opponents against. They beat Virginia Tech by 7. We only beat them by 4. They beat Cal by 8. We only obviously beat them by 1. And then they actually beat Georgia Tech by 3, where we lost by 5. So it's a little, I'm like, okay, let's not, I believe we're going to win. I think we're going to win for sure. I was actually watching Dono while I was at the gym earlier today, and the dude stole my score exactly. I was saying 41-35. I think that's probably going to be the score. I know
Mhm.
it's
I don't
it's
want it that close.
I
I
I don't
really
want it.
don't.
I don't either, but the thing with Kyle McCord is I've been saying this all season. I'm like, guys, do not sleep on Syracuse. I've been saying it since the rip. I'm like, I think Georgia Tech and Syracuse were probably our two biggest stumbling blocks, only because Georgia Tech, we lost to them last year and they played us really well. And they obviously did beat us. And I knew we would lose one game. And then I said Syracuse just because they're built very similar to us in the sense that they can score pretty quickly and they can get the ball. But not only that, interesting fact too, they actually by 2 minutes, they actually have a very similar time of possession. I think Miami and Syracuse are the 1 and 2 teams in the ACC who have the best time of possession. So again, that's how Georgia Tech beat us, was they kept the ball for 10 extra minutes. Teams that stay in the game usually are doing it because they're holding the ball and they're keeping Cam Ward out of the game. So, I mean, again, besides that one blowout loss to Pitt, all their other games they've lost, it's only been by one possession. Very similar to a Kansas thing. So I don't think the boys will be sleeping on it, but it's definitely going to be, I think, a lot closer, which is why I picked that 41-35. You don't have to give a score
I
if you don't want to. But what's your
Yeah,
thought?
I like that it's in a dome. It's gonna be 68 degrees. I think that plays well to what Miami wants to do. So I'm not. I don't know. I like the way they match up. I really do. And it's one of those where I don't feel as concerned as I have been in previous weeks.
Yeah,
I
I don't
think
me
those could be
neither.
famous last words, but
I know.
I feel good.
It's funny because, like, the confidence when you're thinking about it logically, you're like, "Absolutely, this should not be a test. This should be a very definitive and confident win." But as you say these things, it's like that Georgia Tech game, man. Like, I just have such PTSD from that the show we did where I we were going through the stats and it was like, man, like on paper, this shouldn't even be a challenge. And then, and more importantly, is you do the eye test. And I've been watching Syracuse because I've known they were going to be a threat to us, especially just knowing, even if we didn't lose to Georgia Tech, right? Let's just say we were undefeated up until now. The threat of having a team and like right after a holiday as your last game going into the ACC championship. I mean, again, it's a little bit different because if we were undefeated, we could still afford to lose this game and still go. Now we have to win to make it in. Um, I I I, I still have a slight hesitation, but the logic in my brain says 41-35 just because they're going to put up points, but it won't look as close when you watch the game as it sounds in the scoreboard, if that makes sense. You know what I mean?